again, going back to Ray Kurzweil, he believes he will, he's taking all kinds of vitamins and everything else. He believes he just has to make it till about 2030 and he'll live forever. I happen to disagree on what life is.
We want him to be right.
Yeah. Let me start with this. How would you define life?
Well, I think we all understand that life is basically defined as consciousness. Right, that ultimately consciousness is the unique thing that humans have.
So if you can make a robot conscious, it's life?
Maybe not. We'll have to decide. But consciousness is more than an analytical process. It's more than a verbal process. It's something that is not understood. It's never been understood by philosophers, and scientists today cannot explain consciousness.
If Ray is right, because this is one of the things he's working on, if he's right, and you can download somebody, let's say a soldier on the battlefield, and he's still got it, but he's lost everything else, and you could download his essence and put it into a working machine, have you created life? Or saved a life?
These are the questions of science fiction. The good news about your question...
But it's not science fiction.
But what you're describing is many, many, many years from now.
2030, according to the guy who works for you.
Well, I will be a little bit more pessimistic.
2040.
It's a long, long time. And the reason is that as we understand the parallelism of the brain, which presumably is our consciousness, it will be many, many years before we can simulate what you're describing. What we can do...
You should talk to Ray.
I have.
Does he know you're this pessimistic on his work?
I'm not that pessimistic on his work. I'm a supporter of his work.
All right.
It doesn't mean that 2030 is the date. Have you ever encountered a product that slips?
Oh, I know. I'm still waiting for my flying car. But...
Well, we're actually working on that.
But I also know why you hired him, because I know his record. I mean, I read Age of Spiritual Machines when it first came out.
Ray is a truly brilliant innovator and futurist. Right. The reality is we've got to do stuff step by step. One of the core questions in this area is whether it'll be possible to do something called the Turing test, where you can actually determine whether a person or a computer are one and the same. You literally ask questions of the computer and the person. Many people believe that within a couple decades we'll be able to have computers that are as smart or as dumb as humans. Mm-hmm. But in order to do that, by the way, the computer wouldn't have to have a perfect memory because it's trying to simulate people. So it's a more complicated question than you might imagine.
If you can, and you call them in your book, you call when you could up a memory prosthetics. Explain memory prosthetics.
Again, is there some way in which we can recreate some understanding, allow you to consult it, get it into you? We don't know. These are speculation.
You guys sound like I read your book.
I know.
You're not as like, well, that's crazy talk in the book. I mean, I don't understand.
These are not current Google X research projects.
No, I know that, but you are working towards them. You see them as a possibility.
A possible path in the future.
Okay.
Right. Is this relationship of humans? But you're asking the deepest possible question.
Don't you think that's good?
Absolutely.
Okay.
But there's so many ways in which there are assumptions in your questions, right? Is it a perfect replica of a human? Is the thought similar? How does it work? How does it interact? We don't know.
I mean, I just know Ray, and I think he's brilliant. And I know what he's shooting for. And if he shoots for that, you should, before he says, hey guys, you won't believe what I got in the kitchen. I got it. Before he says that, shouldn't we have some conversations on, well, what does that mean?
There will be many product reviews between now and 2030.
But should it be product reviews? Here's what I'm trying to ask you. The world that you guys are projecting, hang on, hold on just a second. The world you are projecting is a wildly different and possibly dangerous world, unless we all have these conversations and say, what is life? First
place, this conversation will happen every day for the next 20 years. And it's probably more than 20 years, for sure. And the second thing is that companies like Google have all sorts of incentives to do this right. There have been a number of projects inside Google where we ultimately thought we could build it, but that it would invade people's privacy or is inappropriate use of our brand, might be a regulatory problem. It just violated our principles. We actually have a set of rules by which we operate, which we talk about. Right, and even if we didn't have those rules, we'd be regulated to death if we violated them.
So let's talk about the rules then, because maybe that's a better place to start. What are the rules? What are the...
How about making the world a better place for each and every citizen?
That is so general. I could say, a lot of people could say that.
But it is our belief.
But what does that mean?
Well, using technology to advance knowledge, to empower individuals, right, to do amazing things.
Okay. I don't know why I expected to have I expected to have, I said this morning, I will never do, I mean, not that he would ever give me one, I would never do a conversation with the president. Because I know any president, I know exactly what I'm going to get. And he's got to answer what he's got to answer. I really thought we would have a more, more philosophical conversation.
Well, again, I think we can have... my problem is that you're describing things as fact when there's a lot of guesswork to get to there. As a philosophical matter, computers should be in the service of humans. That the information and services that we're building should service us and not the other way around. And I think ultimately that's how society will make these decisions.
Okay.
And it won't just be Google or any other tech.
Right. And I don't mean to single you guys out. You're just the big dog. All right. You talk about, in reading the book, I understood a little why maybe some people are now saying in Washington, and, you know, unemployment's not so bad because you're going to have time to paint and write music. That has not computed with me at all. I'm like, since when has that been a logical thing to say about the unemployment? Then I saw something from a big investment firm last week that said if trends would continue, and they said it would not continue this way because something will break. But because the Fed is making money so cheap right now, tech people can grab all this money and invest in robotics and everything else. And if the trend line would continue before something would break, you could foresee 60% unemployment because robotics and everything else going to make so much of our life and the jobs that we do obsolete. And you talk about this a little bit in the book. Will you talk a little bit about what the job scenarios are going to be like? Because you talk about you'll have time to, I love this, deep think in the future. Unless you have read people like Ray Kurzweil, people don't have any clue as to what is about to hit them. And it is dynamic and exciting and breathtaking at the same time. Explain what the world is going to be like in 2030.
Well, 20, 30 years is a long time for any of us, right? Then we're in the game of being a futurist.
I'm saying 2030.
That's a long time for tech. Let's talk about 5 to 10.
Okay.
We know in 5 to 10, computers will be really good at giving you suggestions for things that you might be interested in, things you should learn about, and so forth. In the book we write, and it is my own view, is that it'll evolve into humans do one set of things and computers do another. Computers are very good at remembering everything, but their judgment isn't so good, and certainly not in the next 5 to 10 years, whereas people's judgment is typically quite good, and their memories are so-so. So you combine the two, you just got a smarter person using a computer to make them. So think about an infinitely intelligent assistant, right, who with your permission and you know, sort of helps you out. What should I be doing today? Who should I be calling? What should I be reading? What should I be caring about? This can make you much, much smarter. That's, I think, where technology is really going to take us.